I tested my boyfriend with a small task to see if he really cared, and his response made me question if I'm wasting my time in this relationship. What is the orange peel theory? I was scrolling on TikTok when I saw a post about the orange peel theory, which, to sum it up, is when you ask another person to do a small task for you, like peeling an orange or asking them to tie your shoes for you. Both of these are tasks that you can do by yourself. The real test is how they respond to you. If they respond with, "You can do it yourself? Can't you do that?" I guess. Then they are not willing to do small tasks for you and will most likely fail to do larger tasks for you in the future. However, if they do it willingly or take the initiative to do it immediately, then they pass in a way. Now on to the situation. My boyfriend of 7 months was sitting in the couch when I saw the TikTok video explaining the theory, and I decided I should try it out. Up to this point, we were happy, but now looking back on it, I am not surprised by how he responded. I asked him to tie my hair up for me, and he looked at me and asked me why I couldn't do it. At first, I thought that maybe he was intimidated by my long hair. However, he has had long hair in the past and knew how to tie it up. I asked him again, thinking it was just a fluke, but he told me that I could do it since I was in the kitchen, and he needed to relax, stating that he just got off work. I know what y'all are thinking. Let that man relax, he just got off. Y'all, he works from home. And even if he was truly tired, he has plenty of energy to play games and go out to the bar with his friends. Regardless, I didn't want to break up and thought it was dumb to throw a relationship away over a TikTok. Well, that was until later in the day when I asked him if he could toss a towel in the dryer so I could be warm when I got out of the shower, since I forgot to do it myself. Surprise, surprise, he never did it. And it just made me realize how much I do for him and his daughter that is not even mine. And I think I have fed, held, and changed her more than he has. So Reddit, I ask you, am I the Ada if I go through with it? Update 1. Alright, so I read all the comments, and honestly, I didn't expect everyone to get that invested. Thanks to everyone who actually cared enough to reply. I decided to keep going with the relationship for now, but I started paying attention to all the little things he did, or really, didn't do. At first, I thought maybe I was nitpicking, like maybe it's just a few small things. But the more I looked, the more it felt like I was doing all the work while he got to just coast by. I'm telling you, it's like every tiny thing that came up, I'd just wait to see if he'd handle it. One morning, for example, I asked him if he could make us breakfast since I had an early meeting. He just kind of looked at me and went, "Isn't there cereal?" Cereal. Okay, I don't know why that annoyed me so much, but it did. I'm not saying I expect him to go all out and make a gourmet breakfast every day or anything. I just wanted a gesture, like maybe he'd cook eggs or even just pour the cereal into a bowl without making it sound like a chore. It started building up, all these tiny things he'd do or say that just showed he wasn't really willing to lift a finger if it meant doing something for me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I figured I'd test it a little more. One day I tried something simple, like asking him to bring my phone over from the other room. I was on the couch with his kid, and he was just playing games on his phone. Instead of getting up, he literally sighed and went, "Can't you get it later?" Like, seriously? I'm sitting here with his daughter, keeping her entertained, and he can't even pause his game for 1 minute to help me out. I didn't want to believe this was becoming a pattern, so I gave him a few more chances. One night, we ordered takeout, and I asked him if he could set the table while I got drinks. He just shrugged and said, "Why? We can just eat out of the containers." It's not that I minded eating takeout straight from the box, but it would have been nice if he could just put in that small effort, you know? I felt like he was barely putting in any energy to make things feel like a real partnership. I know it sounds petty, but it's these little things that add up. Then, last weekend, we went to his mom's house for her birthday. I was helping her in the kitchen, and she was cooking up this huge meal. Meanwhile, my boyfriend was on the couch, watching TV and chilling with a beer, and his mom didn't say a word about it. I'm there, chopping veggies, setting the table, trying to be helpful because she's doing so much. But he just sat there, didn't offer to help once, didn't even notice I was practically running back and forth to make sure his mom could relax and enjoy her own birthday. I mean, it's her son's mom. You'd think he'd want to help out, right? His mom, by the way, seemed super nice, but she gave me this look a few times, like she was kind of sad. It's hard to explain, but it was like she was used to her son being this way, and she felt sorry for me. We didn't talk about it or anything, but I could tell she knew what was up. At one point, she whispered to me, "Thank you for everything," and it kind of hit me. If even his mom sees this, maybe it's not all in my head. Anyway, fast forward to later that night. We get home, and I decide to talk to him about it. I was nervous because we haven't really had any serious discussions about our relationship yet, and I didn't know how he'd take it. So, I started with something small, just told him how I felt like I was doing more than he was in terms of the relationship, and I thought it'd be fair if he'd help out a bit more, just to make it feel balanced. He looked at me, didn't say anything for a long time, and then he just goes, "I don't know what you're expecting from me. I didn't ask you to do any of that stuff." I was honestly speechless. Like, he didn't even try to understand or defend himself. He just didn't care. That's when I realized maybe he was never going to change. I thought about the times I'd stayed up with his daughter when she was sick, the times I'd cleaned up after both of them, made meals, planned little outings to make things more fun for us as a family. I did all that, and here he was acting like it was no big deal because, in his mind, I chose to do it. So at this point, I decided I needed some space to think. I told him I was going to stay at a friend's house for the weekend, just to clear my head. He didn't try to stop me, didn't ask if anything was wrong, just gave me a casual, "All right, have fun." I mean, come on. Even if I was just going for the weekend, wouldn't you think he'd be a little curious about why his girlfriend suddenly needed time away? I went over to my friend's place, and when I told her everything, she looked at me like I had 3 heads. She's like, "Girl, why are you even with this guy?" And honestly, I didn't have an answer. 7 months isn't that long in the grand scheme of things, but I realized I'd already done so much more than a girlfriend would usually do, and he hadn't even bothered to meet me halfway. After talking with my friend, I went back home, and I thought maybe he'd at least ask me how the weekend went. But nope, he just said, "Hey," and went right back to his game. I stood there, waiting for him to acknowledge I'd been gone, to see if he'd noticed that something had changed. But he didn't. Not one question about what I'd done, how I was feeling, or anything. It was like I'd never left. That's when it hit me. I was basically living with someone who couldn't care less about me. It wasn't just about the orange peel or a warm towel anymore. This was the way he saw me, like someone who'd always be there to pick up the slack while he got to sit back. I'm realizing now it's not that he can't do things for me, he just chooses not to. And the worst part is, I let him think that was okay for far too long. Update 2. Alright, so after that last realization, I felt like I had to give it one last shot. I mean, 7 months isn't forever, but it's not nothing either, right? I didn't want to just walk away without feeling like I'd at least tried everything. So I decided to have one last conversation with him to see if there was anything worth holding on to. I waited until the next day, after dinner, when his daughter was asleep and things were calm. I sat down with him and said we needed to talk seriously about how things have been going. I told him I felt like I'd been putting in all this effort to make us feel like a team, and it just seemed like he didn't care. I brought up specific things, like how he didn't even try with the little favors I asked or how he hadn't really done anything to make me feel like I was important to him. I mentioned how even his mom seemed to notice it, which I thought might hit a nerve. But he just looked at me, totally unfazed, and goes, "I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, I don't ask you to do any of that stuff." Hearing that felt like a slap in the face, honestly. I tried to keep calm and explained that relationships don't work like that. It's not just about doing things because someone asks. It's about wanting to help, wanting to make the other person feel cared for. And instead of actually listening, he just kept defending himself, saying he didn't see why I was making such a big deal out of small things. Like, he kept going on about how he never promised to be Mr. Helpful, whatever that even means. I realized he just didn't get it, or maybe he got it and didn't care. But here's the kicker. While we're in the middle of this, he checks his phone. Right there, mid-conversation. He doesn't even try to hide it, just casually picks up his phone to check a notification. I asked him, "Are you seriously checking your phone right now?" He just shrugged and said he was expecting a message. No apology, no acknowledgement that he was being rude. It was like he couldn't even pretend to care. At that moment, something in me just clicked. I got up, looked around the room, and all I could see were things I'd put effort into. Our place, our relationship, everything. And then there was him, sitting there, making zero effort to even act like he cared. I told him straight up, if you can't even take 5 minutes to have a real conversation about us, then maybe I'm wasting my time. He didn't argue, didn't try to stop me, just shrugged and said, if that's how you feel, I'm not going to chase you. I didn't say anything else. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed a bag, and started packing. I didn't have much there anyway, just a few clothes and essentials. He didn't get up, didn't ask what I was doing, didn't even seem curious. I walked out, and as I closed the door behind me, it felt quiet. Like, I thought I'd feel sad or mad or something, but all I felt was this weird calmness. It was like I'd been holding on to this hope that he'd turn it around, and the moment I realized he wouldn't, everything became clear. I went to stay with my friend again, and this time I knew I wasn't going back. We stayed up late talking, and she told me I did the right thing, that I shouldn't have to keep proving my worth to someone who couldn't be bothered to care. I mean, looking back, it wasn't just about the orange peel or the towel. It was about being with someone who didn't care enough to lift a finger, even when it meant showing me a little appreciation. She even pointed out that he probably wasn't going to change, not without some huge wake-up call that I doubt he'd ever have. A couple of days later, I went back to his place to grab the last few things I'd left. He was there, but barely looked up from his computer when I came in. The only thing he said to me was, "Make sure you take everything this time." No, are you okay? Or do you want to talk? I just packed up the last of my stuff, took a deep breath, and walked out. Now that I'm out of it, I can see how one-sided everything was. It's crazy to think I was willing to keep trying, thinking it was somehow my fault, or that I was asking for too much. But really, all I wanted was a partner who'd care enough to do small things because he wanted to make me happy. I don't think that's a lot to ask for. Funny thing is, after I left, a couple of his friends reached out, asking if we'd broken up and why. I didn't go into the whole story. I just said we weren't working out, and I needed someone who'd put in as much effort as I was willing to. Turns out a few of his friends already saw this coming. One of them even said, "Yeah, he's always been like that, honestly." Like they already knew he was kind of a lazy partner, and it wasn't news to them at all. So, where does that leave me now? Well, I'm back at my own place, starting fresh. I've got a lot more free time now, and honestly, it feels like a weight's been lifted. I didn't realize how much I was bending over backward to keep everything together until I wasn't doing it anymore. Now, I can just focus on myself, do things that make me happy without having to worry if he's going to show up for me or not. And here's the twist I didn't see coming. The day after I moved out, I got a message from his mom. Yeah, his mom. She sent me this long text saying she was sorry things didn't work out between us, that she thought I was a great influence on her son, and that she really appreciated everything I'd done for her grandson. She didn't directly say it, but it sounded like she knew her son wasn't exactly a great partner. She even said she hoped he'd learn something from this and finally start stepping up in his own life. I told her I appreciated her message and that I wished them both the best. It felt good to know she saw my side of things, but it also confirmed that this problem wasn't just in my head. After everything, I can say this whole experience taught me a lot. I learned not to settle, especially not when someone's actions clearly show they're not willing to put in any effort. If it takes an orange peel theory or a mist warm towel to reveal that, then maybe those things aren't so small after all. They show you what kind of person you're with and whether there's someone who'll step up when it matters. I might not have the perfect relationship now, but at least I'm not stuck with someone who thinks it's a chore to show me they care. For now, I'm happy just focusing on myself and being free from feeling like I'm always waiting for someone to put in half as much effort as I do.